will bring those to you right now. The budget comes from the finance team, and the slate of lay leaders comes from your nominating committee. When this meeting is over, Mary Robinson will email every church member a message with links to the budget and the leadership slate. This message will also include a link to a voting form. You will have until midnight tonight to respond with your vote. Additionally, if you are not able to vote online today, see me after the meeting. I have a few paper ballots you can fill out and return to me on the spot. Wait just a few minutes to see that everyone has access either on your device or with a paper copy, and then we'll get started. Wait, Brian, I think Kathy wanted one. Kathy, do you know? Kathy right there. Thank you, Brian. I will now call this meeting to order and would like to start with a word of prayer. Dear God, we gather today in a mood of celebration and of humility. We celebrate Central Christian Church for its 190 years of existence and service to the people of Indianapolis. The congregation has been a home for thousands of disciples who strive to follow your word and work to make this community a better place. We are also humbled by the reality that this work is never finished. Today we make decisions that will help us further your work to make this church, this city, and even this world a little bit better each day. In your holy name we pray, amen. With just 2 items of business, it should be a short meeting, but you never know. I know you're getting hungry, so I will start with a presentation of the budget. The 23-24 budget, The 22-23 budget was roughly $580,000. The church board met on June 5th to approve the 23-24 budget, which is approximately $610,000, an increase of approximately $30,000. Most of this increase is to support the cost of living adjustments for our church employees. I would like to add that ask our treasurer, Brian, who's here to be, you're there already close to the front, so he will be here to help answering questions. But first, I'm going to answer some questions that came in online today. For those that are online right now, you can email any questions you might have to our vice moderator, Lee Hull Moses. You should have gotten that email address in a message earlier this week. So here are a few of the questions we received online this week. And hopefully this will cover most of the questions we have. Why is the worship flower budget being cut in half? Pre-COVID, $35 a week was budgeted for flowers from a florist. During COVID, this budget line was not used. Moving forward, at least for the time being, we hope to be creative and save some money there. Chris Tower has offered to help coordinate this effort. I know at least through the summer, he's going to coordinate bringing in fresh flowers, and some of you are going to be helping with that. We'll reevaluate at the end of the summer to see if we need to make some adjustments, but that's why the flower budget has been cut for now. Parking fees and building use have declined, but the income from these sources has increased in the new budget. So during COVID, the income from these 2 sources disappeared. And this past year, it started to increase, coming back to maybe pre-COVID times. I think there was an estimation from the finance team about what that will be this coming year. So we'll have to make maybe another adjustment next year. But for now, it's increased to what we think it will be. And if so it's in line with what we got this year. And at the end of next year, the finance team and the treasurer will make any adjustments based on what comes in this year. So, building insurance and liability is reduced in the budget. Have we reduced coverage amounts? The simple answer is that we switched companies to get a better rate. The new coverage is comparable. The trustees made a decision based on switching to this new company, and I think we can trust that's a good decision. So, is everybody satisfied with that answer? I think the more complicated answer would take some time. So if you want a more thorough answer, you can see me afterwards. Membership development has increased by $100. This line is used for the munchies with the ministers. And like many things, cost of pastries has increased this year, so we upped that line just a little bit. Staff development has increased by $500. Since there was already conference book and travel budgeted, what is this line for? So this increased, this budget line is for the staff retreat. They had a staff retreat this year, so it's not for individual staff development, it's for the entire staff to have their retreat. So, questions there? There's a large increase for piano maintenance. What repairs are planned? So this Steinway was rebuilt about 20 years ago. Like any musical instrument or appliance or body, over time, there needs to be repair to keep it in the best shape possible. So to make the simple answer is it needs regulation. So with each piano key, there are 88. There are lots of little different pieces in there. One of those is the cap stand, so each one of the cap stands has to be replaced for all of those keys. They need to bring the hammers in line with the strings, and so that'll cost about $5,000. It's a one-time up in this item in the budget, and it will hopefully disappear next year. So it's just a one-time addition to the budget. The next question I will give to Brian. How do the budget's numbers compare with current year's actual income and outgo?
I will make just some general comments about how we've done this past year, and if you have specific questions, I'll be glad to address them. Our contributions through the end of May were about 2% ahead of budget. So if you look at the proposed budget for the column that is for 22, 23, we're just about 2% ahead on contributions. Overall income is about 100%. So we're right on budget for income side of things. On the expense side, overall, we're about 6% below budget on expenses. That's as of the end of May, though. So we still have another month of June. We tend to see more expenses come in June because maybe a lot of the teams haven't submitted some of the expenses that still need to be paid or realize that there's things that still need to come in. So I do expect that that's going to change yet for the month of, through the month of June. But overall, the big budget items for payroll expenses, personnel expenses, and then facilities, they're on budget. So personnel was on budget. Facilities is a little over budget for the year. So that gives you a general idea of kind of how we performed overall for the past year and how it compares to what we're looking at for this year.
Lee, do we have any questions from the ether on the budget? Are there any questions in the room for the budget?
Thank you. I'm Judith Ray, and I'm one of the children and youth team, ministry team coordinators, team leaders. I have a bit of concern about the children and youth team budget that's presented. I know the statement was put out that you were able to triple last year's budget for the children and youth. And I appreciate that if we understand how small last year's budget was. What people may not have recognized that we had a 54% reduction in what we actually asked for. So we're being asked to do less than half of what we are proposing for the year with our children and youth. And while a couple of other ministry teams had small reductions in their ask, the children and youth ministry team is the only one that had a huge reduction in their ask in terms of vision for this year. And I don't know if it's possible, but I'm asking if it's possible to add at least a couple more $1,000s to the children and youth budget so that we have a little more flexibility and that we are not just balancing this budget on the backs of our children and youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. I think it's really great for the room to hear this request. I don't want to speak for the finance team. I was not at the last meeting, but they had to make some very difficult decisions based on what was coming in this year. I feel like I know from the board that there's a lot of support for the children and youth ministries. I can only say that we will, at the next board meeting, maybe look at the possibility of finding some extra funding for this year. If we feel like you need it, and we can try to find it, that's a possibility. Okay. The proposal that came to the board was approved, and so to assemble the board and have another meeting, I don't think is possible today. So this budget came from the board, it went to the board, we approved it. There are too many steps in order to do it right now. I'm sorry, Judith? Well, I think the congregation, of course, has a say. Right. I mean, I think the congregation votes up or down, and so if the congregation votes no on this budget, then we'll go back to the drawing board.
I would imagine any member can make a motion, and then someone can second that motion, a discussion can be had, and a decision can be made. So.
True. Okay. Yeah, so Judith, did you hear that? If you want to make a motion, you can do that, and then we can ask for a second and then have discussion.
Okay, I'm willing to do that.
Okay.
I would officially like to make a motion that at least $2,000 more be added to the children and youth budget for this year so that we're actually not doing as much balancing of this budget on the backs of our children and youth as we are currently. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Judith. Do we have a second? Second? So Linda Kirchhoff made a second. So now it's open for discussion. So Judith, we need a concrete amount, not at least. So it's 2,000. And Linda, are you okay to second that? Yes. Yes. Yes, 2,000 additional. So we have a second. So it's open for discussion now. Questions, comments?
Just to be clear, that will also, because that will have to be an increase in contributions, would actually be an increase of $2,200 to the budget, because increased contributions, we give 10% to our general work, our BMF work.
Do we need to increase?
No.
Okay.
No, just saying that's the implication.
Okay.
It might be helpful, Judith, if you can explain what those dollars would be used for.
Thank you. we're looking at more ways of celebrating our youth and working through the year of having ways to celebrate the accomplishments of our youth along the way. We are hoping to bring in some outside teachers for some multi-generational events for children and adults in the congregation. I think it's already shows in the budget now. We're looking at exploring a family retreat for children and their families. And just our ask was actually $88,550 for the total budget. It also includes, as you may have noticed, our kids don't do well after church if they don't have a little bit of food. So we try to have food for the kids after church, and food costs have gone up. And so it includes extra costs so that we can feed our kids so they stay focused and are able to learn with us. So those are some of the kinds of things we're adding. Thank you for that question.
I'm a little confused. We are presented with a balanced budget. If we add it right now, what else are we going to cut to keep it balanced?
That's a good question. I'll be glad to respond. I'm Jim Higginbotham, chair of the finance team. We wrestled long and hard with this. The amount of money that we get pledged in the last few years has decreased in proportion to the amount of money that we receive from contributions. So it becomes harder and harder to estimate how much money is going to come in during the year. This budget is based on the last 2 years have been around, we've received about 115% of the pledges in contributions. So 15% more than what was pledged we receive in contributions. And so that's the amount that we chose as the maximum we could estimate to be received. The trustees were only able to keep their contribution the same, which is understandable. The stock market has not been good, although they did increase for the facilities management process position. So because of the increase of $30,000 in expenses, even with the cuts that we did make, we tried to, you noticed our treasurer said that we were at we were only at 94% of budget, so we tried to tighten some things up. So this was a pretty carefully thought out process. We're only talking about $2,000 more. It is entirely possible that we'll receive $2,000 more than estimated. So it's not an inconceivable estimate. And if that is the will of the congregation, then we'll figure it out. There's a little bit more money. We're drawing a fair amount of money from our reserves each year, and this year we think we'll need to use it. We haven't been using it in recent years because this is a very tight budget. So that gives a general explanation. Does that help? Oh, one difficulty we're having is, of course, the people online can't vote for this amendment. How many are online? We don't know. You don't know? I'm only receiving questions. Yeah. It's like 8. 8, okay. I do have a couple of comments from people online.
And they're both, excuse me, so I have a couple of comments from people who are online, and they are both in the same vein, which is simply that people can certainly make gifts above what they have already pledged to support the Children and Youth Program and designate those gifts for those programs in a way that allows us to move forward with the budget as presented but still lets us support the program as we figure out how we can fund it more expansively.
Yeah, I was just going to have you mention that there is a designated line for children and youth if people wanted to do that. That's already set up. Yeah, outside of the operating budget that we're looking at today.
Well, you do because there's a bunch of online.
Oh, sorry. I say, do we have to go back and make another motion to do that, to have people that want to designate to? Okay, then my thoughts are let's do that and get the budget rolling.
Any other questions? Okay, yes, Deborah.
Is the children and youth team the only one that took this big of a hit on how much is theirs?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
The question was, are the children and youth the only team who took a cut? This
Well, they
size of a cut.
Well, they did not take a cut. It was tripled from last year, but they didn't receive what they asked for.
And all the other teams,
Most teams stayed as they were last year, and a few took a reduction.
I did the numbers with my computer last night, or with my calculator, and the worship team took a 10.5% reduction from what they asked, but over half of that was related to children and youth funding for the worship. So that still is more children and youth lost there. The witness team took a 3% reduction from what they asked for, and the children and youth took a 54% reduction in what we asked for.
Judith, I will say that it's a huge increase what you asked for from previous years, and so we have to sometimes see why you're asking for it, and I think there are some questions about what's going to happen with that funding. So I think we'll call for a vote on the amendment that's been put forward. Show of hands. So the amendment is an additional $2,000 added to the Children and Youth Ministries budget. So show of hands, all in favor of the amendment? All opposed to the amendment? So of those who voted in the room, there are 20 nays and 16 yeses. So 20 nays and 16 yes. So the amendment does not pass. But Judith, I want to assure you that the board will take this up and try to figure out how to help you do what you want with your team. Okay. Any other questions about the budget? Is anyone getting hungry?
yes.
Okay. Now moving into the leadership slate. What? No, we vote online after the meeting. Yeah. Now moving to the leadership slate, I want to thank everyone who has served at Central Christian in any capacity this year. We could not survive without the collective commitments of time and energy. We will take time in the coming weeks to recognize all of those who have served this past year. Today, I just want to read the names of the newly appointed leaders. If you've not had time to look at the list, you can look on it as you get your email from Mary. It will have the slate again. So these are newly appointed people on the slate. Vice Moderator Sandy Michael Bowers, Secretary Teresa Weaver. For the Board of Trustees, these are all 3-year terms, Ellen Anala and Mary Reinhardt. For the Board of Elders, new 3-year terms, Jay Foster, Roger Rowe, Jennifer Riggs, Lori Adams, and Aaron Lareris. New deacons for 3-year terms are Lircy Gerbellini, Stephanie Reinhardt, Robbie Schmidt, and people for a 1-year term, Elaine Bruner, Vanessa Holloway, Harper Moses, Garrett Nickel, Tommy Rivera Figuero. At-large board members, 3-year terms, Linda Kirchhoff, Amanda Lane, and Mickey Mathiodakis. And delegates to the General Assembly, Kent Grimes, Susan Grimes, Alex Holloway, and Mindy Ham. Any questions about the slate of new leadership? Great. So, as I mentioned before, as soon as this meeting is over, Mary Robinson will mail out an email to all church members. You'll have the budget and the slate to look at again, and then you can vote before midnight tonight. If you need access, I have some paper copies, and you can find me after this meeting. Yeah. Question, Judith?
Do we have a list of the new team leaders, please? Ministry team leaders, they weren't on the slate.
Yes, the congregation does not vote on those.
I know, but how do we find out who they are?
That will be coming to you in the coming weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, no questions then?
Wait,
Oh, another
there was
question.
one there.
Sorry, I'm slow. I was just curious why Elaine Bruner is a 1-year term.
That's what she wanted. Yeah. She wants to serve along. Her son has a 1-year term, Mindy, so she's going to do that also. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? I saw several hands. So yes, we are adjourned. Thank you so much. Have a great meal.